Hey there, I'm Richard Brandt, Monos Historian, and you're watching Stream It Now. Shout Factory TV has another huge selection of new titles this month, with drive-in classics from the Roger Corman Exploitation Factory rubbing shoulders with critical darlings, like Warren Oates, Peter Fonda, Elizabeth Ashley, and Margot Kidder in Thomas McGuane's Key West thriller 92 in the Shade, the made-in-Argentina sword and sorcery epic Amazons. Pam Grier is a gladiator in Steve Carver's The Arena, Monty Hellman's early horror thriller Beast from Haunted Cave. Jesse Vint co-wrote and stars in Black Oak Conspiracy. Sophia Loren, Marcello Mastroianni, and Giancarlo Giannini in Lena Werthmüller's Blood Feud. Don the Dragon Wilson in Blood Fist 2, Blood Fist 3, Forced to Fight, Blood Fist 6, Ground Zero, Blood Fist 7, Manhunt, and Blood Fist 8, Hard Way Out, also known as Trained to Kill. The corporate vampires satire, Blood-Sucking Bastards. Teddy Chen's star-studded historical thriller, Bodyguards and Assassins. Charles Bronson on patrol in Borderline. Sophia Loren and Richard Burton in Alan Bridges' remake of Brief Encounter. The cinematic Titanic crew takes on East Meets Watts, also known as Dynamite Brothers, and Sam Chu in Rattlers, co-starring Assault on Precinct 13 star Darwin Jostin. Warren Oates stars in Monty Hellman's adaptation of Charles Willeford's Cockfighter, photographed by the legendary Nestor Almendros. Crimes of Passion is a 1988 true crime TV special hosted by James Woods. Also, the sequel, Crimes of Passion 2, hosted by Bruce Dern, which never aired on television because they couldn't find any sponsors. The debut of Jack Nicholson in Roger Corman's Crybaby Killer, after Roger met Jack in an acting class. Jeremy Irons as identical twins in David Cronenberg's Dead Ringers. So many people thought Jeremy Irons was robbed of an Oscar nomination for this movie that when he eventually won an Oscar a few years later, the person he thanked was David Cronenberg. The zombie thriller Devil's Playground. Martin Sheen and F. Murray Abraham as Dillinger and Capone. Charles Bronson is an Avenger for hire in The Evil That Men Do. George C. Scott and Brad Dourif in William Peter Blatty's sequel, The Exorcist 3. The steamy Irish slasher, The Fantasist. Roger Moore as Simon Templar in The Fiction Makers, patched together from a two-part episode of The Saint. Billy D. Williams in the 1972 Black Power drama The Final Come Down. Linda Shane's Magical Sneakers movie Flying Ryan. Jet Li and Suey Hark's Flying Swords of Dragon Gate. Carol Burnett and Ned Beatty in David Green's Emmy-winning true story Friendly Fire. Toby Hooper's horror thriller The Funhouse Massacre. Don the Dragon Wilson is back in the sci-fi thriller Future Kick. Lily Cole, Sarah Silverman, and Paul Rodriguez in the horror parody Gravy. Claudia Jennings in the Great Texas Dynamite Chase. Linda Blair and Vince Van Patten in Tom DeSimone's Hell Night. David Morse, John Savage, Harold Russell, and Oscar nominee Diana Scarwood in Richard Donner's drama Inside Moves. Dee Wallace in Fred Olen Ray's Invisible Mom. 1976 vintage Tommy Lee Jones, co-starring with Yvette Mimieux in Jackson County Jail. Eric Stoltz, James Spader, and Cameron Diaz in the thriller Keys to Tulsa. Pamela Sue Martin as the Lady in Red in Louis Teague's thriller. Screenwriter John Sayles used the story of John Dillinger's paramour, to tell a story of 1930s radical activism. Charles Grodin in the 1986 comedy Last Resort. Gary Graham in the World War II thriller The Last Warrior. The British crime thriller The Lesson. Johnny Toe's crime drama Life Without Principle. Steve Buscemi stars in Tom DeSillo's semi-autobiographical filmmaking satire Living in Oblivion. The French animated feature Long Way North. Charles Bronson as an FBI agent in Love and Bullets. Jamie Curtis in the steamy romance Love Letters. Bette Davis as a criminal mastermind in David Green's Madam Sin. The Magic Voyage of Sinbad, which is actually a deceptive re-editing and retitling of the Russian fantasy epic Sadko. Terence Hill, Gene Hackman, and Catherine Deneuve in Dick Richards' Foreign Legion adventure March or Die. The 1969 biker flick Naked Angels. Look sharp for a young Penelope Spheris. The cop thriller Nightstick, although most of the interest is in the cast of go-to bad guys Robert Vaughn, John Vernon, and Leslie Nielsen. William Peter Blatty's intriguing drama The Ninth Configuration, starring Stacy Keach. The British fantasy epic Outcast. The French horror thriller The Pack, not to be confused with the Australian Mad Dog thriller, no matter what the description on Shout Factory TV's website says. Richard Norton in Sergio H. Santiago's post-apocalyptic thriller Raiders of the Sun. Cheryl Ladd in Romance on the Orient Express. George Siegel in the thriller Russian Roulette. Chen Kiagi's historical thriller Sacrifice. Rafe Zielinski's horror parody State Park, also known as Heavy Metal Summer. The luscious Maria Ford in Stripped to Kill 2. Julie Andrews and Omar Sharif in Blake Edwards' The Tamarind Seed. Ed Nelson and Coleman Francis in the drive-in classic T-Bird Gang. A British documentary about the Battle of Arnhem, Theirs is the Glory. The Mystery Science Theater favorite Time Walker, featuring Sherry Belafonte and both the stars of Assault on Precinct 13, Darwin Jostin and Austin Stoker. Jeannie Bell struts her topless kung fu in TNT Jackson, co-written by the late, great Dick Miller. Yuan Wu Ping's martial arts classic True Legend, starring martial arts greats Michelle Yeoh, Gordon Liu, and David Carradine. Harley Coklas's Warlords of the 21st Century, aka Battle Truck, with a cast including Bruno Lawrence and John Ratzenberger. The Australian teen drama Wasted on the Young. Jacqueline Smith and Robert Wagner in Sidney Sheldon's Windmills of the Gods. Bo Svensson in the fantasy epic Wizards of the Lost Kingdom. And more Pam Grier in the Filipino Women in Cages classic. Well, it's called Women in Cages. Do the math.